What should we be expecting on Roblox earnings? They are tomorrow, Tuesday, February 15th, after hours, and I'll be live for those guys. So make sure you're hitting that notification bell to tune in live and get notified when I do so. But this is something that has been beaten down considerably. The metaverse plays were so hot over the summer and have done so well, but everything, the air has been taken out of all of that. And so does that mean that Roblox could potentially be a buy, even where it's at right now, especially ahead of earnings? Well, as we always know, earnings are going to be something that is going to be very risky trying to get into and trade before those earnings get released. Even if a stock has good earnings and beats expectations, there's always that risk that outlook could be poor or there's something else in that report that would spook investors into selling. So make sure that you understand that risk going into it. However, the risk reward here on Roblox seems to be quite good. The stock is down over 50% from its highs. It got crushed. You're looking at this, the expectations tomorrow are going to be for a loss of 13 cents per share. The revenue here is going to be around $767 million in revenue, give or take. And so can we expect an earnings beat there? I think that there's a pretty high likelihood that that happens, especially as, kids got through the winter months and through the holidays. I think that there's probably a lot of activity as far as that's concerned, but also the growth story here too. They're still a very small company, and for them to be reporting on just a loss of 13 cents, that's something that I think could be promising as far as growth is concerned. There might be a path to profitability, and that's something that we're going to have to really pay attention to. That being said, I've mentioned before that it's going to be really important in this rising rate environment coming from the Fed, and as inflation goes up, that you may want to consider being in more stocks that report positive earnings or profitable rather than ones that aren't, because they're going to be the most sensitive to rising rates. Roblox fits that category. The valuation is still pretty high, and when it comes to price of sales, I know that the stock's been beaten down, but it also reports losses. So that's two strikes against it. For me personally, it's probably not one that I'd want to own going in the earnings. However, they come out with good earnings. It's down so low that even if you don't get the bottom, there's so much upside here that you can still get in after those earnings get reported. So let's take a look at the chart and see what the possible scenarios are going into these earnings for Roblox. Okay, so looking at the chart here, you can see how much this has actually come down. We saw this fall below its IPO level, which was sitting at around $65 a share. It's at 68, so it's barely above that right now. And it fell below to $53.63, which is now its all-time low, also the 52-week low. It was sitting up here at $141.60. So you can see the upside potential, of course, with this stock, especially given how much this has come down. If they come out with great earnings and they have a positive outlook as far as growth is concerned, there's reason to believe that we could see this break above resistance at around $76.83. We can mark that right here. Let's go ahead and mark that with our horizontal line, just so you guys can get a pretty good visual of where I'm looking at there. You can see that there's a potential cup and handle maybe there. I think that this certainly looks bullish, but obviously, as we always know, earnings can just ruin a perfectly good chart. So we're still going to have to maintain where we see Roblox go after we get that earnings report. There's also the 250-day moving average that are converging on each other there, which is going to be an important area to watch as well, especially if Roblox decides to really get a move on after earnings. We've seen this take place, right? Last time they had earnings, this gapped up considerably from around $70 a share and shot up the next trading day as high as 110. So to say that, Roblox doesn't have it in it to potentially test the 250-day moving average probably is a bit of a lie, because I think that there's definitely a possibility that that could happen. We could certainly see this go back to those 110 levels if they come in with any sort of path to profitability talks or any kind of increased growth. Depending on how great that growth is, I think that would determine how high Roblox certainly goes up. Looking at RSI, you can see that it was clearly oversold back in the later part of January and has done really well to work its way back up. And it's still at a reasonable level, sitting here at around 44%. It starts to make its way towards that 70%. As we always know, it starts to it increases your level of risk as it starts to make its way up here. So keep that in mind. But really, when it comes to risk reward on Roblox, even if you wanted to get in before earnings, I think that it makes sense, but make sure that you're not doing it with money that you can't afford to lose, because again, there's a lot of risk going in with earnings. However, like I said, risk reward looks pretty darn good. But as I mentioned before, I don't own Roblox, and I want to hear from you. Should I consider buying this, or do you already own it? Should you get out of it? let us know in the comments below. Certainly would love to hear from you. And make sure you hit that join button next to subscribe to get a watch list that I put out every single day of the week. Gives you a list of 5 stocks with a technical breakdown and everything you need to know about what's moving on in the market before the market opens. So don't miss that. And I would love to have you guys support. Hit that notification bell to get notified when I go live, to get my live reactions to these Roblox earnings. And I will see you tomorrow.